Welcome everybody to my second video reviewing my photography, and many thanks to everybody who provided all the really nice feedback on the last video that I did way back at the beginning of January, which seems an awful long time ago, but looking at trying to provide a video, I guess, not video diary, but a kind of video addition to the photo week posts I put out, looking back at the photos I took in the last week. I think the one I did was looking back on my photos from 2025, or the first photo week of the month, I can't remember. Some really good feedback, and I say I appreciate everyone who took the time to share that with me. I think, as I said at the outset, I didn't really want that to be a replacement for the existing photo week. I think, and I think the decision I came to off the back of that was that I was going to actually introduce a new kind of series alongside my kind of regular sort of Sunday newsletters on photography and my Thursday photo week. And so I would do a dedicated video each month, which I'm going to call month-long exposure, where I'm going to look back, I'm going to pick out over the previous month some of my favourite photographs in that month, 5 or 6, 4, 5, 6, a small number. So hopefully, again, the video will be a bit shorter and just give you a bit more background to those images, thoughts, why I picked those ones out, etc., etc. So a variation on a theme, I suppose, is what we would say. So it's a bit like the photo week, but we're looking back across the month. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. I will bring the images up on screen so you can see what we're talking about, and I'll talk you through them. So obviously we're looking here at January 2026, and this first image here, we were lucky enough earlier in the month to have quite a bit of snow, which is unusual for us here in the UK, as the weather patterns have changed, and particularly unusual for us in the south of the UK, in East Anglia where I live. So, but we woke up one morning to light dusting of snow all over the place, and I sort of dashed out with a camera to see what I could find, and made a repeated trip out with my youngest son as well. And it was actually on this walk, as we were returning to the house, that I spotted this scene. And it's quite simple. It's just the curb. It's just the curb with a dusting of the snow, unbroken snow on both the path and on the road side itself. And I just like the kind of, I guess, the contrast in textures. So, the man-made curb with the kind of more natural snowflakes on top, and the gentle sort of curve through the scene, from bottom left to top right as well. As with all my images, I shoot in black and white anyway, but this one, as soon as I saw it, I knew this would work really well. I tried variations on it, a landscape one, but it's the portrait one I actually prefer. So yeah, that's my first shot. Next one is probably something I'm going to write a bit more about on my Substack, but I started playing with the X-Pan crop this month. I've always liked a nice panoramic shot, be it a sort of stitch series of images, or maybe cropping into a 16 by 9 is one of my favourites, or sometimes 16 by 10. But I've always been intrigued by the X-Pan, which, if memory serves, is 65 by 24. And so, but there were some scenes, particularly here in the Fens, where we have these vast flat landscapes, that it would work really well, where there is literally no detail, top and bottom, just sky and field, but a lot of interest horizontally. So I started by looking at it in terms of just cropping within Lightroom, an existing image, but I also got an iPhone app, and I'm really sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head the name of who it was that actually put me onto that. I'll see if I can dig it out and pop it up somewhere here on the screen. But they put me onto this iPhone app, which allows you to shoot in the X-Pan crop. It'll apply a kind of preset to you. There's a couple of black and white ones in it as well, but you can also opt to have the raw file as well, which is, so I tend to shoot in one of the black and white modes, and then I will generally edit the raw file myself in Lightroom Mobile. And this is one of many shots I've taken in the last few weeks using the app. I found it works really well, makes it very easy to visualize it, otherwise you're having to kind of, think about it in the context of composition in the camera. This is one of my favourite trees. I've photographed it any number of times over the years. It's just off the Hereward Way between Ely and one of the neighbouring villages. I've run up and down the track, which you can see on the left of the picture here, hundreds of times over the years. But I've got so many photographs of this tree at different times of year. This morning it was, and it was a morning, you can see where the sun is in the sky. It was quite misty. It wasn't really misty, but there's a bit of mist in the air, which is quite nice. And I quite fancied trying a shot back in towards the sun, so back down, coming off the track into the edge of this flower meadow and taking the shot back. And again, with the contrasting of the light falling off to the right, with a bit of mist fading out the back, knew the expand shot would work quite well, and I think it did. So I'm really quite pleased with that one. Next one is this shot of a garage door. Again, another project I've kicked off this winter is my kind of nocturnal Ely project. It's I don't know, it just seemed quite apt really that with the nights getting longer as the clocks change, that actually I would try shooting after dark. I mean, most people think about photography. Well, photography is about light, obviously, but shooting at night is quite challenging. I've done it quite often in terms of some of the running and endurance race event photography that I've done. But I thought I would try seeing if I could capture my local town at night, as so much of my running over through the winter is after dark. Again, it seemed quite natural. And this was a shot that actually I took on the way back from the train station one evening. I actually wasn't running, I'd been out to work. I was coming home, heading up the hill, and I just kind of captured this garage door, which is pretty benign, and you wouldn't really class it as photogenic during the day. It's just red brick wall and drive and a white garage door. But there was something about how the way the lights just spilled out across the driveway that I was really drawn to. And I captured this scene, I believe, and I probably just need to check. Yes, it was. It was actually, that was taken on a proper camera rather than my phone, one of my Sonys. And I've taken quite a few that day, but in terms of this project, it's been one of my favourite shots of the month. Really happy how that's turned out. This next one is of a toilet cistern. Random things you see. I genuinely can't remember where I shot this. It was at a weekend. I was obviously somewhere in a toilet, but I cannot for life remember where the toilet was. But anyway, I was really drawn to it. I mean, it reminds me a lot of my childhood. I'm pretty sure one of my grandparents had a kind of Victorian style cistern like this, where you pull the actual chain from the cistern that's mounted high in the ceiling rather than the modern toilet. And I was just drawn to it as a subject. Again, I've got a number of different shots of it. Some taking the full cistern, full width, but I particularly like this one, just focusing in on the sort of right hand side of it. Again, I like the contrast in materials, textures, light, and the shadows that they're creating. Again, just really quite like it. I think it's probably bringing back those childhood memories. That probably initiates that one. This one again, back running now, and this was something else that I've started doing more of this month is photographing cemeteries. Last year I was taking lots of shots, and I continued to take lots of shots of churchyards and in churches if I can get into them, around the buildings themselves. But actually I found there's so much interest actually in the churchyard. So again, this was a cemetery in a local village that I happened to be running past at the time, and sort of stopped and had a little wander in to see what it was like. It was early in the morning, and again, generally in my experience, and I don't hang around in churchyards that often, but you tend to find behind the scenes and round the corners and on the edges of it's where the interest is. And this is the perfect case in point here, where tucked in one corner you can see there's a sort of maintenance building here on the left. There were these 4 sort of gravestones just right up against the wall, and they were catching the morning light. Again, this was a morning run, so the kind of light was sort of streaming into the graveyard behind the building. So again, it cast the building itself into shadow, but it was really sort of pulling out these gravestones. And there's obviously a piece of board that's been tucked behind them as well, I guess, to stop it blowing away. Again, again, like with a lot of my photography, it's that kind of contrast of, nature. So you've got the foliage and the plants and stuff against the man-made, and then we've got the old in terms of the gravestones there, and the new, i.e. the building, which is obviously kind of a more traditional modern metal structure, and that piece of board. So again, my kind of image, this one I would say. And then this final one was actually one I shot last Friday, and I've just written about on Substack. Was when I stopped off to take a sort of wander around my camera at Magpie Mines up in the Peak District. So I was working up in the northwest of England later in the week, and I'd sort of seen some shots of Magpie Mine recently again on Substack. Just somebody else had been there and photographed it, and again immediately just was intrigued. I've visited and photographed and written about quite a few old sort of abandoned mine workings in the UK in the last few months, so I kind of earmarked it as somewhere to go, and I just happened to be on the Friday morning. I was kind of thinking, well, actually, I'm not going actually out of my way to go there. It's not the route home I would definitely take, but it's it is a route home I could take. So I set off there, and wow, what a morning I had. I left in drizzly rain and arrived up, as I climbed up into the Peak District, the snow arrived, and I arrived there in a dusting of snow, everywhere, mist and a little bit of fog around, and totally unexpected conditions. It wasn't what the weather forecast was saying at all, but perfect photography conditions, because the mist allowed that kind of separation, and actually having the snow on the ground again just really added to the shots. So I took a whole load, and again I'll provide links to the article where I shared everything, but this has to be my favourite image, or one of my favourite images. There are probably so many I could have chosen and popped in here, but this is one of my favourite images of this sort of small ruined building, which I'm not even sure what it was. It's not mentioned on the maps. There's an information board there and stuff, and I've done a bit of research trying to work out what it was, and I couldn't find anything that tells me what it is, but it's an old abandoned building, and as I said, with the mist, there were some really nice characterful trees that were around the site again, which I took quite a few photographs of, but with the mist, it allowed them to disappear and become these kind of ghostly shapes. And with this particular building, as you can see, we had the window, or the old window, and I could shoot through the building and then frame a distant tree in it. So it kind of encapsulates everything from that trip to me, the kind of old abandoned with the snow and the fog and the trees all kind of in one shot. So yeah, anyway, those are my, I can't remember, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 favourite photographs from January 2026. So yeah, a month-long exposure. Again, I think that's the working title I've given for this series. So hope you found it interesting, giving a bit more detail behind some of my shots. This is something I want to try and do every month, just to kind of give you a different way of, I guess, hearing from me, I suppose. I write, I take photographs, but actually maybe hearing my own voice and seeing me talk about these is for me, from a creative perspective, is an interesting and different way of creating. Doing a bit of video and stuff like that, and also maybe gives you something else to see, maybe hear from me and see from me rather than read my writing. And yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I will see you again on the next one. Take care.